Well, great. Well, yeah, welcome everybody back to Neoteric's Retail365 podcast. We have two titans here in the casino industry joining us, Vince Manfredi and Simon Farmer. And just so you both know, we're going to have a slide with your bio kind of in the background. So thank you for the input there. But I'll leave the floor to you guys. Do you guys want to just give a quick 15-second overview of who you are, your background, kind of what you're currently working on right now?
After you, Vince.
Sure. I've been in the industry for so many years. It's not a positive to tell anybody, but it's been decades. And I was an operator for many years. In my early career, I opened up the Excalibur in Las Vegas as the director of advertising and public relations. I opened a casino for Hilton in New Orleans. I switched to the vendor side, and I was with IGT for 12 years in the development of systems and system products, especially on the marketing side. And frankly, AI just gives the engine that we were missing all along, and I can't wait to dig into that a little bit.
Definitely. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm currently the executive director of marketing at Paula Casino. I've been in the Southern California gaming industry for about the past 20 years now. And as I finished up college at San Diego State University, I spent some time at an ad agency. That's where I first cut my teeth on casino marketing, doing work for Valley View Casino, as a matter of fact, and have since gone to Barona Casino Resort, as well as Morongo Casino Resort and Spa. And just had the recent opportunity to join the Paula team here. Been involved in all parts of the casino marketing operation, front of house, back of house, advertising, analytics. Just really the core of the whole thing is using information to make good decisions and on targeting guests and growing the business.
Yeah. And just for the audience, this topic really piqued my interest as well too. So I went to business school 15 years ago at UCLA. I did a summer internship with Harrah's Entertainment, which I believe now is Caesars, the official kind of branding, but it was their Presence Associates program. So I worked at a small casino in Elizabeth, Indiana, Southern Indiana, right outside of Louisville, Kentucky, and was just fascinated with how marketing, ops, sales, it's all connected. And then also just the volume of data and how you have instant access to data to measure results. So this is one that I'm going to be a big fan of here. So I thought an initial icebreaker. I'm curious with the two of you, what is your favorite? I'm assuming both of you gamble at least to some extent, but what is your favorite game at the casino? And curious why? Just out of curiosity.
Am I disqualifying myself? I lost a paycheck when I was 25 years old, about 6 months after moving to Las Vegas. And I don't do a lot of gambling, but I think blackjack, it would be, when I do play, I like to play a live game. It would be blackjack because there's a lot of back and forth. It's not as easy to win a big pot, but you get a lot of time on, at the seat for the money spent.
Yeah, I'd have to say likewise. Back when I used to play a little bit more often than I do, and maybe that's the recurring theme. Once you know the score, you don't engage in it quite as much as you used to. But I used to play some blackjack. But now usually if I'm just going to casino, it's with no expectations other than to burn some time and have a little fun. So you might find me sitting at a slot.
Yeah, blackjack. It took me a while to understand the kind of unwritten rules at the table. So when I was younger, I would get intimidated because some of the other players would get mad if I wasn't following like the proper hit patterns and stuff. But
Right. Yeah.
I'm a huge fan, but my favorite is actually roulette. For some reason, I find that I can play a lot longer and in most cases not lose too much money. And I try to play the percentages on the outside, and I always just have a Superman complex that I think I'm going to win because I'm playing the percentages every time. But it often, I mean, as you probably both know, it evens out over time with the odds and whatnot. So,
When you talk about blackjack rules, the one that I learned that fateful night was do not gamble with a big beaker of bourbon. Not advised.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, great. Well, I know I laid out kind of three high level kind of topic areas for this, but one thing I just wanted to bring up top here I was just doing some real light research on the state of the gaming industry in the US. From American Gaming Association, it looks like there's going to be a 2.2% annual growth in just the industry overall in 2024. But I guess what was, kind of an interest to me was, there's also obviously an explosion of online gaming and the ability for people, whether it's sports gambling or gambling with other traditional games, at their computers, on their phones. And I saw a stat that online gaming contributed about 30% of total gaming revenue in the first quarter of this year. And I guess just out of curiosity, how do you all talk about how to deal with the online gaming piece with your teams, with your businesses? Like, do you see it as pure competition, or is there a way to work with the online gaming to help your businesses thrive? I was just kind of curious there.
That's kind of the crux of the conversation, specifically in California, where Vince and I are both based out of. Right now, online gaming is not legal in the state. When you look at those stats, like what you saw from the AGA, what you'll actually see as a trend across the country is, by and large, the different jurisdictions aren't growing quite as quickly as they used to, unless they do have some form of online gaming or sports betting. In fact, just a couple of years ago, even as recently, rather, as a couple of years ago, you were seeing that if there were any growth at all from some of these statewide jurisdictions, it was exclusively because of online gaming and sports betting. The brick and mortar organizations weren't necessarily carrying the same weight that they used to, and certainly, as the economy tends to ebb and flow a little bit as destination-based travel has again ebbed and flowed a little bit. Certainly coming out of the pandemic, brick and mortar casinos have had to make adjustments, and that's certainly one that we talk about quite a bit as we look at legislation getting introduced a couple of years ago in the state to legalize sports betting and what that would mean for casinos. In some cases, based on how that legislation was being discussed, you would have situations where certain casinos would stand to benefit based on their partnerships with online gaming operators versus those who might not have been able to have that same kind of partnership. As California is largely tribally run from a gaming standpoint, and some of the tribes have been incredibly cognizant of how to manage that potential imbalance and how to continue to take care of their people. Certainly, especially those who might not stand to benefit from that legislation passing. So it's a balancing act again between doing what is right by the business and growing the business as such, but also doing what's right for the community and for the families.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I think there's an element of community that's being lost in our society today, and I think that is going to always give the brick and mortar casinos a little bit of an edge. The aspect of going somewhere and being around people and things like that. I think that's an important counterbalance to the online gaming, I think.
Yeah. No, I'm 100% aligned. It's funny, I was on another podcast last week and we were just chatting about, not to throw everybody's ages out here, but I'm slightly older than millennials. I think I barely make the cutoff, and just my peer group, we got introduced into the workforce, always being in offices, always, being around people and community, and just, I don't want to bag on the younger generation, but, social media consumption is just on the rise. There's all these metaverse games, and we feel like there's definitely something being lost with establishing community. I don't know. I feel like things are starting to flip back towards people wanting to, be together in real life and in physical spaces. So I don't know. I personally just hope that trend continues.
I think you hit it on the head. I think it's cyclical, right? So right now, the unique selling proposition might be shifting towards feeding what you describe as that kind of solitary engagement. The convenience of just being able to game by yourself on your device, in your pocket, wherever it happens to be convenient. Right now, again, convenience has really taken over, but over time, that means, to Vince's exact point, what will likely happen is, as we tend to adjust to that environment, we'll find ways to make service, the counterpoint to that, and make service, as much as we say it already is, but service, above and beyond paramount to what a brick and mortar establishment can offer, above and beyond an online experience.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And yeah, so that's a great segue. One topic that we wanted to dive into was the unique ways that you think about driving foot traffic, I guess more broadly, new customer acquisition for your gaming locations. And so in some of our past sessions, we spend a lot of time talking about direct to consumer and e-commerce, and I don't want to make it this simple, but we look at what is our digital spend, who are we targeting with Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google, what's the cost per new customer, what's maybe projected LTV. Yeah, I was just really curious, yeah, how you guys look at that now. Like, is there that much of a financial component, or how do things maybe differ with the strategy piece there? Yeah.
Let me just give you two items regarding the uniqueness of gambling, whether it's online or in person. It's a unique retail product in as much as you can win or you can lose. So from a customer satisfaction perspective, you're usually, as the operator, we're usually behind the 8 ball a little bit, because the player that just lost his wallet for that trip is probably not going to be very happy. So that's a unique element of gaming that doesn't really exist in much other retail. The other thing that I've always found, and that may have changed, Simon, but we always try to describe a persona that was a gambler, and it's nearly impossible, because in our work we saw that it went across all kinds of demographics. They're just sketchy, all walks of life, all ages, different locations. I mean, by and large, it's a wide swatch of population that could be a potential customer.
Yeah, I mean, persona marketing in gaming obviously is going to be very similar to how you cluster and describe and build out personas in other markets. But again, exactly to the point Vince is making, it's personas or demographic personas in particular, in and of themselves, are really don't paint a complete picture of what makes a casino player. And I'm sure, as he has found, but yeah, certainly have over the years, really the only strong predictor for casino play is prior casino play. Within that, you can find some things that correlate. You can find some things that really lend themselves better than others to predicting whether or not you're going to convert someone. The fact of the matter is the way that digital media, digital marketing has evolved, really lets us kind of hone in on those factors a little bit more completely than we used to in a traditional advertising sense. Whereas, and I think this is the perpetual challenge of advertisers, or those who buy advertising pretty specifically, and will always be, on the broadcast side. Digital media, whether it's digital display, whether it's search engine marketing, whether it's OTT television, whether it's streaming audio, you have all these different avenues now, which can give you this really direct feedback as to how well you're targeting those personas, as Vince and I have been speaking. And how you convert them back to your casino. So whereas you weren't necessarily able, and continue to not be able to do that at the traditional broadcast level, we've got these resources now that can marry that granular database work, that we've been doing for years in casino data, with our outside spend to really make that consumer acquisition cost as efficient as possible, which is really important, certainly for especially for the operations that may not have the same kind of budgets, the same kind of dollars available to them as some of their larger competitors.
Yeah, so that's oh, I'm sorry, Vince, were you gonna say something?
I was going to say, as it relates to AI, I think, as we continue to evolve, and I think it's going to happen very quickly, the segments are going to be segments of one, instead
Mhm.
of people with a financial range from A to B and this and that. I mean, programs can be tailored to the specific individual. I mean, it's not new, the concept, but I think we finally have a tool that's going to allow us to get there.
Yeah, that I'm curious because so from my brief experience, I remember once you were able to bring in the customer, Harris would have these dedicated VIP relations, managers and team members that, in a basic level, they were trying to up level the play volume of current customers. Do you all think about that on the front end? Do you try to look at characteristics of your VIP players and then try to bring in, more of those people on the front end? Or is it typically we just want to drive as much traffic as possible just to make sure we can hit more short-term goals? I was just, because in other businesses, it's a mixed bag. I think it depends upon the growth stage of a company. But for the most part, once companies become more mature, especially in direct to consumer, they're trying to bring in more of those higher value people up front that are going to be more profitable. But I was just curious if you all think through that lens at all. Yeah.
No, yeah, without question, and again, efficiency of spend, no matter who you are, what business you're in, is always going to be incredibly topical. So yeah, we absolutely try to model those better performing customers, and try to derive from that where to hunt for more. It's become an interesting exercise in the last several years, again with economic ebb and flow, but in particular in Southern California with market maturity being what it is. This is not a novel marketplace anymore. These are not new structures, new businesses that are opening up. A lot of people within our market already have a preconceived notion about what these casinos have to offer, what casino gaming is. Couple that with again some of the socioeconomic shifts that we've been seeing. The value of money, especially with younger generations, it's become less of a again novelty, to just try to come and win, come into a casino with dreams of fame and fortune, as it is another option in the long list of places you can spend your discretionary income. As such, we need to think about all the different ways that we can get people into the funnel. Think about all the different ways that people are actually seeking out casinos, whereas now they're much more categorized as just diversion. And you have to have the amenities to serve that search for diversion, whether it's through dining, whether it's through resort experiences. But the people that engage in all these different activities, again, the benefit of working at a casino is that it's very data rich. You can get information about everyone who's engaging with your hotel, who's engaging with your food and beverage project, who's engaging with your entertainment ticket purchases, who's engaging with your casino floor, and profile off of every characteristic that your tracking has to offer. And that's where you're able to, go back to the initial statements, build some of those personas, figure out who's responding to what and from where. And that's when you really can hone in those new media recruitment technologies.
Simon and I worked on a project for Morongo actually years ago where management wanted to put in a signature restaurant with a celebrity chef. So it goes well beyond just who's the most popular. We did exhaustive research, different times, both qualitative and quantitative, to understand what restaurants do our best players gravitate towards and who is their favorite celebrity chef. One of the disturbing things that we found at that time, at the very top of the pyramid in terms of spend and value of the customer, they didn't give a damn. Right?
That's right.
They wanted to gamble and they didn't care.
Wow,
that kind of clouds the point. The point is,
Yep.
we were trying to zero win on a celebrity chef that would, reach and be attractive to the best players that we could find.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Again, back to my limited experience, the casino that I worked at, the biggest driver of traffic was free food promotions on like Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Probably a way different demographic, but in that instance, people cared a lot about food, and that was the driver to get them in. I think the brand was trying to shift to bring more, hardcore players into the funnel, but it's just interesting that it was flipped and the reverse. So
Back in the day, like when we opened Excalibur, there were no systems, there was no tracking. The chairman of the board, we were measured by or judged by how many people went through the buffet that day, and did we fill up the hotel that night? It was actually Circus Enterprises at that time, and those were the only metrics that we had to work with, literally, and that's what we did.
Yeah, I think before we move on to kind of retention and customer experiences, I guess just one last thing to close the loop here. The buzz from a media perspective is social media platforms like TikTok, Reddit, connected TV. In your space, are you all embracing these new channels kind of similar to other businesses? Or yeah, just curious how much you're leaning into those newer social media experiential platforms like that.
But advertising today is the same as advertising, several years ago in certain regards. And I think the one at the heart of it all is engaging with your consumer where they are, converse with them where they are. In fact, you're seeing again that shift, increasingly. So every year after year, shift from traditional ad service, again, print, traditional broadcast and audio to new manners of communication in the digital space. Social media, obviously, it's not even new anymore. So to label this such as a little bit of a we'd be remiss to do so. But the important part for us, just as we're discussing all these different targeting techniques within our walls, isn't just acknowledging that our consumer is there, but it's also trying to figure out how they actually use it and what they're actually engaging in. So as we look at social media as a target or as a vehicle to deliver our message, so we need to know what messages our guests are responding to out there. Just case in point, if we may find, or as I found anecdotally in my experience, yes, the social media community tends to skew a little bit younger than our core gamer. Therefore, core gaming advertisements, messages, if you will, don't necessarily resonate the same. However, younger consumers, because they value their money differently, they're not looking for that same kind of gaming experience, but still looking at casinos again as a source of diversion. So we need to make sure that we infuse all the fun that we have to offer into those social media messages, and we're able to see those things, whether regardless of whether or not it's a paid advertisement or a boosted post. We can just look at pure engagements, shares, comments, likes, to really see what messages are landing and which ones are not. But that also leads into you mentioned CTV, for example, and I think we talked a little bit about that before, where you really do have these direct to device communication messages where you can really track all the way back to, aside from viewership and getting, if you're doing any kind of format testing, and you're looking at those viewership rates, you can obviously see which ones are resonating more, but you can track those views all the way back to your casino itself. You can actually drive trips with advertising in a very direct way, whereas you haven't historically been able to do that. And if you want to know, the number one way, whether or not you're making money on these digital platforms, with your ad service, with your marketing message, it's through that, like without a doubt.
Yeah. No, that's oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I just think, in addition to what Simon is saying, messaging needs to be different, you know, especially if you're talking about a social media platform. Just taking another version of your, I'm going to go pick on buffets today. You know, you can't just take your buffet ad and plop it into Facebook and think you're going to make any difference, or Instagram or anything like that. I think that you know, it really gets into more of the story. If you're going to be successful, you need to be thinking in terms of storytelling, and to be giving the audience an inside track. You know, don't talk about the buffet. Find the chef that trained in Europe and knows how to do this and that. You know, make it unique and make it original. And that's content. You know, that's the way that I view content in that particular arena.
Yeah, you're curating a community. You're inviting people in to experience your brand, your facility in ways that they can't through other channels. And that's really optimizing it. That's really, and you'll tend to see that that's what really hammers the engagement home when you are looking at those stats that we were talking about. Vince is 100% right. This is not an ad platform. It's a conversation.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, no, Vince, you had I mean, a really, it's funny because that's a gap that I see with a lot of brands that I work with is there's kind of, you know, whether the brand is marketing towards an event or a holiday or whatnot, they'll take kind of one set of brand or creative tone and messaging and just think, you know, you can plop that into the site, into meta ads, TikTok, a TV spot, and just, you know, maybe just change copy. But yeah, you need to think about the channel, the specific audience that is consuming media on the various channels, and then tailoring it to them. So
And to some extent, I'm cutting you off all the time. I mean, and to some extent, I think the smaller casinos that are, you know, especially in remote areas where they don't necessarily have the marketing talent or the budget for marketing talent, you know, where they do just exactly that. They take
yeah,
the standard ad and they throw it onto social media, and
yeah.
it's a waste. It's a misuse of the platforms.
Yep, yep. So yeah, yeah, let's switch gears now towards so customer retention and elevating experiences with the usage of data. And I'll, as a backdrop, I'll let you, you know, yourselves and the audience know of kind of, you know, where my understanding was 15 years ago. So, you know, my experience was with, so Harris Entertainment had a pretty world-renowned program called Total Rewards. You know, I'm not even sure if it's still in rotation right now, but at a basic level, you know, you have a player's card, you plug it into every machine or you know that you're playing, and basically your game play is tracked so that the casino knows, you know, what you like to gravitate towards, how much you won or lost, and then as a follow-up, you know, the casino could market towards you, you know, with that knowledge of what you've gamed in the past to drive you back to the casino. I think when I was leaving, you know, I don't know if this was integrated, but there was also a non-gaming total rewards component where they were starting to track, you know, beverages, food, entertainment, and then bringing that into the fold of how to remarket to you. But you know, this was 15 years ago. I'd love to hear, I guess, from you know, let's start with, you know, once somebody is at the casino, like what are some new uses of data to up level, you know, their share of wallet that they're spending, you know, while they're on property, let's say. Yeah.
Vince, do you want to start, or you have a?
Um, I think we're at the beginning of that. To me, it seems like it's in its infancy. There's so much data, and you know, we built a conduit for it 15 years ago. I was with IGT, and we developed the service window, which is basically all the information that the system could deliver to the player. And instead of it being on a separate screen, it was on the corner of the game screen. And it was a bit of a failure, and it wasn't I don't think it was the tool itself. It wasn't the conduit, but there was no engine to drive it. And that's what got me all excited about AI, as I started thinking about how it would work. If we were, you know, if we could access the player while they're playing, and provide them with a meaningful message or a meaningful reward, or, you know, those kinds of things. I think just on the structural level, that's a huge that's going to be a huge advancement, I think.
Yeah, as we've been discussing, casinos are just remarkably data rich, and they have been for years. You said a word as you were asking the question before, and that's remarketing. What's interesting now is that all of this data, for certainly for the savvy operations, so we're finding out ways to actually insert ourselves into this decision-making process, before we even get to the remarketing part of the exercise. While they're on device, while they're within the casino, we have the ability now, and increasingly so, to really get incredibly granular with how we evaluate whether or not someone is playing to expectation, or whether or not we want to attempt to get them to play up a little bit more through the use of real-time data. We can see, to exactly the point that you're making before, we can see how long someone has been on device. We can see how that is trending against how long that they typically play. We can see what visit this is in the span of a number of visits, to see if we're apt to get that visitor in, again, following this particular trip. We can use this information to potentially feed incentives to them while they're on the game, in order to increase their time on device, increase the length of their trip, increase their amount of spend within the casino, and in doing so, increase the potential that we'll be able to bounce them back later with a higher offer, a higher remarketing offer to come back in. A good example of how I've used that before was at my last property at Morongo Casino. Most casinos will have, as I'm sure you experienced at Harrah's. Obviously, we want people to get into these player clubs. We want them to enroll, so we can get this kind of data, so we can build this kind of interactive relationship, if you will. Most casinos, I don't want to lump them all together, but most casinos will offer some really straightforward enrollment incentives. Get X amount of added play, or get a free buffet, or whatever it happens to be for signing up. And that tends to return a pretty nominal level of play when you do that. You end up incentivizing a lot of people who aren't apt to necessarily play more, which isn't necessarily a profitable endeavor. So we rethought that a little bit. We restructured that and used some of the technology that was available to us in our gaming system. Vince mentioned he worked for IGT. This is a similar system, to where we were able to continuously seed achievement-based awards to these new players based on how much they were playing throughout the course of the day. And as described before, what that ends up doing is, again, there's just the classic carrot on the stick, gets the guests trying to chase that reward, gets them playing above and beyond what they would normally do. Not only do you get them more attuned to that gaming experiences, which is really what we want to do inside the casino, because we can develop gaming in ways that we can't develop, for example, a dining guest. So we can't make you eat 4 or 5 meals a day, but we might be able to keep you on device for a little bit longer within the casino. But not only does that get you on device just a little bit longer, but again, that could impact the reward that you get after the fact. And we try to bounce you back later. You get a larger reward, you're more apt to come back and redeem that. At Morongo, we saw that we were able to increase our 1-year retention, since the time that we started that program, by about 4 times. We were able to over double the amount of investment on that initial gaming day from those players. So all in all, we were building a much stronger gaming community using those technologies available to us.
I think within that, to go back to Vince's example, how do you think about kind of, I'm trying to think the right way, the practical or the emotional components. So I think Vince's example was somebody that just lost a ton of money. Do you try to go back to them with incentives to keep gaming when they come back, or do you pivot towards the entertainment dining piece? Or just curious from what you all have seen through testing and the practicality of how of how to, how to counteract that when somebody's had a bad day at the office, so to speak.
I think that's a moving target. I mean, it really depends on the individual, and their reaction to the loss. I think that could impact it. And some people, offering them a room for the night or some sort of a rebate, there's different things that would resonate differently depending on the specific player. That's what I get excited about again with AI is that, theoretically we can have this individualized information of the player's behavior and then create a reward or some sort of a benefit, in real time.
Gotcha.
That's the funny thing about casino players. Players want to play, right? So even if they have a tough day at the office, as you put it, a lot of times that can make them more apt to want to come back. But what's important for us to do as casino operators is to acknowledge that at the service level. We want, even Vince said it when we first started talking, you're going to win sometimes, you're going to lose sometimes. Most gamers understand that at a fundamental level. But just like any other retail operation, is going to acknowledge your purchase level. If you have a retail clothing store, or a grocery store, you're going to acknowledge the amount of spend, that you're going to get from a specific guest. So we need to acknowledge that as well within the casino, and utilizing some of these real-time technologies is a good way to do that. Right now, my host team, for example, so that team of effectively service/sales reps that cater and foster those relationships with our high worth players, they have devices now that can show them not only that their guests are in-house, but show them where they're playing, what they're playing, how long they've been playing there, effectively putting the entire gaming system in the palm of their hands, so they can recognize these patterns within their guests. They can recognize if someone is losing, for example, well above and beyond what their typical loss might be, where they're losing more than the math suggests that they should lose, which is a whole other discussion that we could get into. Whether or not they're winning more than another, and creating again these opportunities for service engagements in real time that would have been much more difficult years ago to recognize. But this gives those guys the opportunity to go out and acknowledge that, start that retention process right on the spot.
Yeah. No, that makes a whole lot of sense. And I mean, I think I'm probably exhibit A with that. Even when I lose, I just have a Superman complex. I think I'm going to win the next time. So I can see you probably run into that with a lot of your guests. So you mentioned something, and the last piece we wanted to touch on was how AI is currently impacting casino operations in general, and potentially getting into 2025 and the future. I was doing some light research, and Simon, you were mentioning how your service level employees, like in the palm of their hand, they can kind of track where players are playing, how much they're winning and losing, like the trends. I was actually reading, I guess there's facial recognition software and I was curious how much you all have heard about this, but I guess in essence, as soon as, we'll focus again on the VIP customers, as soon as they are on property, there's solutions out there where it sends out like a trigger to all of your hosts that, Bob Smith is here, treat him extra special. But yeah, just curious, you guys can run with that, or, just curious other uses of AI that you're seeing in the ops too. So
I think when it comes to facial recognition, it really depends on the jurisdiction. For example, like in Australia and New Zealand, it is illegal to use facial recognition for anything other than security purposes. But obviously, I don't know that there's much of it going on in Vegas, for example, but other jurisdictions have similar sorts of restrictions on facial recognition because of the privacy and things like that. But it obviously could be hugely beneficial.
Yeah, you're seeing it a little bit more so within our industry over on the cash services side, and the more that regulatory bodies, especially on the banking side, are equipped to allow you to apply for credit lines, for a very operative example within casinos, using facial recognition. You're starting to see it built in a little bit more into the processes around those cash services. So facial recognition for continuing access to your line at I'm going to give you a pretty specific example. So at cash machines, throughout the casinos, cash machines are more than just ATMs. In a lot of cases, the newer ones will give you access not just to your banking accounts like a traditional ATM would, but also to your casino lines of credits, to your front money accounts, whatever you happen to draw from the casino. And now the more sophisticated systems are allowing you to apply, but also access your money through facial recognition cameras that are mounted within those devices. So it just makes for a much more speed to transaction, a little less time waiting in line to get your funds, which brings us to a whole nother part of the technology experience that you're starting to see a lot of casinos adopt. Certainly those that have apps that are available to them are digital wallets. So digital wallets effectively allow you to link an outside funding source, whether that's a credit card or your bank account, to your gaming account, to your player's card, and through that app, through that player's card, load funds directly onto device, load funds directly onto a slot machine, and increasingly so, you're seeing the technology that is going to link those to table games as well. So the perfect world environment for that is, as a player, if you're Phil, you mentioned, feeling the hot hand, feeling like you're just about to win, even if you've already lost. Let's say you burn through your wallet sitting there at a slot machine. You feel that hit's coming anytime soon. You don't want to go and get up and vacate your game and go wait in line at an ATM to get more money. If you're able to just draw that down right from your phone, like that's going to be powerful. That's going to make it a much more fulfilling experience for you in that gaming space.
Oh, so that's interesting. So is there going to be a world where it's not, cash exchange for chips? You're going to be able to, link your gaming account in exchange for chips to play at a table, or yeah.
You're already seeing it. You're
You're
already
already there.
seeing it in a number of different casinos. We're cashless game and even cardless game. I mentioned that rewards card, taking it one step further. As long as you have a phone, in a lot of these instances, that you can come in, you can sit right at your game and you can play. You don't have to stop at the club to get a reprint or even a kiosk to get a reprint. You don't have to reach into your pocket for your wallet. You don't have to cash out at the end of the day, and walk out with it. That can all just transact directly back into your mobile account.
And just for this historically, IGT developed similar technology 20 years ago, actually, and it was utilized in South Africa in the early 2000s. So it's 20 years ago, actually. It's been more of a jurisdictional concern, I think, than not having the technology to do it.
Gotcha. No, that's no, super interesting there. I think one last piece that I was just doing some light level research about AI injection in the casino industry was, I guess this is across the board with other businesses, but the use of chatbots for customer service purposes. And I guess I was curious your all's perspective with that, because from what I remember, what kind of separated some casinos from the other was the how much they leaned into kind of the white glove treatment with their customers. And I know a lot of people, when they hear about chatbots, they think about these like boilerplate responses where it seems like you're talking to a machine, but then you're also reading stuff that these chatbots and AI services are getting a lot smarter, where it does sound like you're mimicking a human when you're trying to get information. So I don't know, I was just curious what you all have either seen, and if you see your space embracing it the same way.
Yeah, so just like other industries, and certainly on the hospitality side, yeah, there's definitely a hard look being given on these AI-based concierge or chat services, and you can certainly create a more efficient service environment in implementing them. A lot of this go with AI, whether it's on the analytics side, the modeling side, or the service side. Yeah, I think of a quote that I heard about it, one that says that your job may not immediately be replaced by AI, but it's probably going to get replaced by someone who knows how to use AI. And that's the stage that we're at right now, is really trying to understand the best way to implement. Yeah, we could turn on a chatbot tomorrow, but is it going to do is it going to give the right level of service to really replicate that human experience that you want? Is it really going to pick up on the nuances on personal conversation? No, not necessarily. And that's where having people that understand that transition are really going to be the ones that are driving these initiatives forward. But in practical application, if I think about, for example, my call center for the hotel, if I can take care of 85% of booking conversations, through a chatbot or through online means, we can take a solid look at how efficiently we're running staffing in those particular areas. Back to another piece that we talked about before, as Vince touched on, the excitement about using AI for some of the database development, some of the business development pieces. You're already seeing this as well, getting implemented across different platforms. AI for predictive modeling, for recency, frequency, monetary targeting. Vince and I have respectively, each made a pretty decent living, doing database work, really getting granular and developing, again, those personas, developing, models to reach out and develop those personas, and therefore develop the business. You're starting to see these systems that are becoming much more sophisticated in doing that legwork for you. Are they perfect yet? No, but it all goes back to, it's like, people who know how to use it to cross that bridge are going to be the ones that are going to be able to take their operations to the next level, which is going to be remarkably important for those casinos Vince was mentioning before, smaller jurisdictions, smaller shops that don't necessarily have the talent pool around there. AI can really bridge that gap for them.
I think while, especially with respect to the chat box, while it might not be appropriate at the highest level of your customers, I think it provides the opportunity to provide customized service deeper into the database, to the more not generic, what am I, like mid-range customer. And I think that can have a huge positive impact.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I think like you both have said, it's optimally, it's kind of a hybrid approach, like some usage of AI. But yeah, Simon, I love your quote there. It's not about 100% leaning into it. It's about up leveling your staffing so that they know how to use AI to make their job or do better with their job. So yeah, that 100% make. And in my world, I manage teams that run, a lot of my teams run media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok advertising. And yeah, we're leaning in a lot. Like traditionally, you used to have to go to a copywriter, give them a brief to put together copy for ads. You had a separate team designing images. And now, our starting point is AI to get like a foundational starting point. And it helps speed up the time to go out and start testing ads on a frequent basis. So it's
yeah, and I'm really looking forward to using it pretty specifically on ads as well. Just anecdotally, was just out at Global Gaming Expo G2E out in Vegas, which Vince is very familiar with. I don't know if you ever had the opportunity to go out there. It's obviously a huge show. You see all the vendors. It's their chance to really showcase everything new that they're working on. And AI is very much a recurring theme with a lot of the technology companies, but in particular with the analytics programs. I had a chance to sit with a couple of groups, and they each showed respectively what they were working on in terms of AI. One was far more aggressive than the other. And what was funny is that in an attempted show of the power of their AI assistant, it was like, let me show you what's happening. They showed us all the slug data, all the sample data that was loaded into the system, and it was effectively like, okay, now it's like, run me a report on our successful promotions for the year, and it starts calculating, it starts doing its thing, and Obviously, if this had spit out anything resembling the kind of reporting that we use to make decisions on the daily, it would have been highly impressive. But what it ended up doing was clumping everything into, if you can imagine, into one bar on a bar chart. It was basically saying, like, 100% represents everything that you did. That was pretty much what the report that it came up with, which kind of goes back to the point. Like, if it doesn't know how to define success, it doesn't know necessarily what your KPIs are until you tell it. Until you tell it, and until you tell it how to derive those KPIs from each of those individual programs that are being run. On the other hand, when you think about advertising, there's a much wider body of work that goes into fueling that. So, being able to go into, an AI system for digital media, for example, and say, optimize my mix at X budget based on what we're seeing here to perform at a, high or the lowest cost per visitation possible, or to grow this specific market, or to grow this specific segment. Like, that is going to probably bear a little bit more fruit than some of the more granular gaming systems will. So definitely looking forward to implementing that, or at least giving it a shot, across some of these platforms.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We were
And
building the, I'm sorry, when we were
yeah,
building the service window, there were so many ideas that we couldn't do because there was really, the data warehouse, accessing the data was impossible. For me personally, as I've started really thinking about this, I feel like I could spend the rest of my career just writing models, using the things that we learned, even just at Morongo, for example, that we couldn't really put to practical application in real time, and now it's becoming possible. It's thrilling, actually, I think.
well, on that note, I think no, this has been a fantastic discussion. I guess before we wrap up here, I think, Simon, you kind of hit on what you think is kind of next with AI, and where you ideally think AI could help evolve operations in the future. I guess Vince, did you have any last remarks with that on, like, what you think you're going to see in 2025 or anything?
I mean, I think I jumped the gun with my last remarks regarding, having, there's no longer a problem of the systems not talking to each other, the food and beverage system not being able to communicate to the main system, and lack of cooperation between the vendors that sell the different slot machines. I mean, all of that is starting to melt away, and I think that is going to facilitate a huge advancement in the industry.
Got you. Yeah, it seems like that's the holy grail. Yeah, like obviously, even from my experience, I remember the gamer was the best of the best customers. But I think obviously for some of the gamers, but then some of the fringe players, like connecting the dining entertainment components, and then being able to not only market towards, but elevating their experience across all of those different categories is kind of that sounds like that's what I'm hearing from the two of you here. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, as we continue to grow and evolve as an industry, it just becomes that much more important to understand how our guests are changing along with us. And I guess that's never really changed. I mean, that's always the task of a marketer, is to really understand how the market is responding to your product, and how to adjust and adapt, and find new market opportunities, find new message opportunities, to keep growing the business. That's why we got into this.
Definitely. Well, no, this has been a great discussion. No, I appreciate both of you taking the time out here. My experience is antiquated and dated, so I learned a ton from this discussion myself. But I'm sure the audience is gonna love this as well too. So thanks again.
Our
Yeah,
pleasure.
of course. Thank you, Phil.
Thank
Thanks.
you.